Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am going to share with you today an amazing guest that I have had on several times now, and I just keep coming back for more because it's so fantastic talking with Peter. We have with us today Peter Cutler, a Zen monk, artist, healer, and spiritual teacher. He is just so fantastic and inspiring to chat with. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful.
Thank you, Paula.
I just love it.
Today, I felt like talking about the difference between our world, your world, my world, and God's world. It's a very different kind of a world. And to experience God's world, basically what I do every morning, I have this practice. As soon as I wake up, I surrender everything to God. As soon as I wake up, I just surrender everything to God. Because at night, I have dreams which come from my mind, which are part of my world, part of the world that I created to see a world. All of us do this, right? And we do this first thing in the morning when we wake up from our dreams. We wake up into in spiritual terms, what we call the waking dream. The waking dream is the dream that we make up of what we think is reality, who we think I am, who we think the room is, what we think the world is, what we think other people are. All our thoughts and opinions create how we perceive the world. That's our world. That's our world. And so every morning I wake up and I surrender that world. I surrender my world, what I think I am, what I think the world is, all my thoughts, everything. I just let them go and surrender that to God, not expecting anything, not thinking that I have no idea what's going to come. And that's the thing. In God's world, you don't have any idea. You're not seeing the world through thought.
I like that. You're surrendering. You're saying, here I am.
Exactly. Well, not here I am. I'm not here. I'm surrendering me. Right? So you surrender even, especially yourself, your life. You just give everything over to God completely. And so that's what I do in the morning. And the rewards of that are beyond description. I mean, I'm just filled with a sense of incredible peace and love and lightness. My whole body feels like it's just light, like light that you see, like light, like a pure light, and also light like there's no gravity. It's like weightless. So it's an extraordinarily wonderful feeling. And that's always what happens in that, when I'm completely surrendered into that state of God's world, into that. And then because you've stripped away your world, you've stripped away everything, when you sort of, go up to do your day, you need to have a world, right? You need to, in order to do something. This is a body, and this is this, and names and forms. But rather than completely create it, you keep unmaking it through the day. That's how you live in this way. You unmake this world, because it's our habit energy and our nature to always create the world, always recreate the world. It's such a strong habit because we've done it every moment our entire life. We've created our world, and our world changes, right? We don't have the same world we did when we were 5 years old or 2 years old, or 10 or a teenager. Our world is changing all the time according to what we think of it. Right now we're going through pandemic and all these things. So our world has changed again. Now we're seeing the world differently than we did even a year ago. All of us are, because of this information that's coming into us of the human world, and it's changing the way we perceive the world. Nothing changes in God's world. God's world is just God's world, but it doesn't have thoughts in it. So for instance, in order to stay living in God's world, we unmake the world. So everybody brushes their teeth, right? First thing in the morning, you brush your teeth at night. So we've been doing this for a very long time, depending on how I've been spending 71 years of brushing my teeth every day. That's a habit that we just do. We've done that. We may change how we do it a little bit, but it's a habit that we do. In God's world, brushing your teeth is the first time you've ever brushed your teeth. The experience of it, you've never had that experience before in your life. And then the next day or at night when you brush your teeth, it's this first time you've ever brushed your teeth. You've never had that experience before. So every experience is the first time you've ever had that experience, because you're not bringing your thoughts, you're not bringing your world with you into brushing your teeth. When you bring the world into you with brushing your teeth, then it's like what you did yesterday. And you know, last week and 2 years ago and 5 years ago and 10 years ago. It's something that you've just done. You don't really notice what's happening anymore. You're just, this is your world, is the world we have is a very limited world, and we don't really pay very much attention to things. Most things we just take for granted, like brushing our teeth. Just something we do. We may notice it a little bit, but in God's world, it's completely new. So we notice everything about it. It's amazing brushing your teeth, you know, and every time it's amazing. It never stops being amazing.
It's an experience, yes.
Yeah, it's like the first experience you've ever had of doing this in your life, and you don't know what it is. You're doing it because you have a physical habit energy of doing it, so you do it, and you also do it in a different way. You find things that you weren't doing that maybe are better to do, you know, because it's new. So you're paying close attention to everything. It's interesting, I noticed today that in the human world, in our world, we worship a lot of things, you know, we worship our idea of God, and we worship money, and we worship, you know, our relationships, we worship stability, we worship security, we worship things that will prevent us from things we are afraid of. We worship things that get us the things that we want. So we have a lot of things that we worship. In God's world, we don't worship anything, you know, and at the same time, we worship everything, everything that comes, the trees, the sun, yes, brushing teeth, yes, this body, yes, other bodies, yes, everything, the world itself, everything. You know, it's just
everything
because it's all God.
Yes.
So you can't not worship it, but you're not worshiping anything specific. You're not worshiping this tree and not that tree, or this tree and not that ant. You know, it's like you're not discriminating. You're not like picking and choosing, because it's all this oneness. It's all this totality, and yet it's extraordinarily beautiful. You do see the tree, and the tree is just magnificently beautiful. You do see the sky, and the sky is magnificently beautiful, and the sun is magnificently beautiful, and the ant is magnificently beautiful. Everything is magnificently beautiful, you know. So, but in order to see this, we have to unmake our world, because our world says that tree's beautiful and that one's dead. That's not that beautiful, you know, or whatever, you know. I like this one, but I don't like that one that much. You know, or I like the tree, but I don't like the ant. There's too many of them. I don't want, oh, what are they doing here? They shouldn't be here, or there should be less of them, or something. We're discriminating and using our mind to create this, our world, which it has likes and dislikes and all this stuff. So to unmake that world, when we unmake that world, then it's just all God. It's just all magnificent. It's just all love. Right? That's just the way it is. We're not making anything. We're not making it love. We're not making it peace. It just is that way.
Yes.
And it's not even, those words aren't there, because we don't really understand what that is either. We just feel it. It just feels really, really, really good. And the more we surrender to it, the better it feels. The more we surrender, the better it feels. So we do, because it feels better. Right? So that's the direction to go. Yes, this is a good direction. You know, and it's hard for people, because in the mind, there's a lot of fear. In our world, there's a lot of fear. The unknown is a place that we should be afraid of. But that is the world of God. The world of God is always unknown, because everything is new in every moment. How could we know it? We're not bringing our baggage of knowing with us. We're just here.
When we surrender, Peter, isn't that a way, you know, that is not knowing. That is a not knowing as well. When we surrender, that's such a big but beautiful step, isn't it?
The world of God is a world of always not knowing. And the not knowing is what gives us this bliss and this peace and this great, profound universal unconditional love are not knowing. It's just because it's just here. It's like we become really an empty vessel. We're just like cleaning ourselves out of what? Of everything, of our world. We're cleaning ourselves out of our world, our life, everything. And in this empty vessel, there's room for God. And not the God that we worship or believe, not the God that we think is God. There's no words for what this is. There's no thoughts for what this is. This is what God is, you know, and there's nothing that it's not. There's no way to encapsulate it into a thought or a belief. It just is.
So it's like a total essence.
Yeah. And then we let that essence fill whatever this is. And that's how we kind of bring that into the world of people's worlds of thoughts. And the beautiful thing that happens is when you open to that, then in my case, these healings started happening. You know, people were healed. Why? This is empty vessel. What do I know? I know nothing, right? And yet it happens. And then I'm just witnessing along with everybody else, the things happening. Miracles. I'm just witnessing it happening, going, wow, you know, and realizing more and more that I had nothing to do with it, that I was cleaned out. I let myself be cleaned out. That's why it was happening. And that was teaching me about awakening so much. And now the transmissions happen, which people are feeling this energy of this great peace and awakening. Why? I'm not doing anything. Somebody asked me the other day, wanted to have Shaktipat. Shaktipat is a spiritual transmission. And he said, I just want Shaktipat. Can you do that? And I said, I don't know. But, you know, we'll see. And so, but it always happens. So of course it did. As long as you're open to it, then you experience it. But it's not me doing anything. And the challenging thing for him was he thought I was doing it. That he said, I've done this with other people and I don't feel it the way I do with you. What's going on here? And I said, I'm not doing anything. That's why. I'm not doing anything. I'm doing less than not doing anything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm letting go of the me that's not doing anything. I'm letting go of the whole thing. There is.
What is that? What did you call it? Shaktipat?
Shaktipat. Shaktipat is just an Indian word they use for spiritual transmission. So some people go to awakened people because awakened people, they see awakened people as, oh, you're wonderful, you're so peaceful and wise and all this. But really, from the awakened person's perspective, they're nothing. There's nobody there. There's nothing, you know. There's just like a hose or a pipe, you know, that's empty. And there isn't even, the outside of the pipe isn't even there. There's nothing there, you know, and that allows the transmission to come. Where does the transmission come from? It comes from God. Yeah. And who receives the transmission? God. Yes. You know, that's why it's received. Because people who can let go, who really want, like this guy really wanted the transmission. So, and he was good at letting go. He let go and he received, and it was like amazing what happened. It was beautiful for me to be aware of his receiving and his letting go. I could see that from inside him, how open he was and how wonderful it was. Because most people aren't like that, you know. People receive in different ways, but he was like full on receiving. He was just wide open. There was no resistance at all. He's a young guy. And so he really got this. And that transmission from God was so profoundly healing and teaching, but not to the mind. It's not really doing anything to the mind. And he was open to that, not trying to understand it, just feeling it and being really happy for the feeling. You know, like, oh, this is great. Yes, it does feel good, but it's not just a good feeling. It's also teaching. It's also transforming. It's literally transforming physically right down to the level of the DNA, right down to the level of molecules. It's transforming everything. And it's also transforming thoughts in your world, right? All of that is being transformed within this. And I mean, could you imagine a person thinking that they could do that? Well, that would be the height of ego. I mean, Of course you can't do that. How could you possibly do that? You
So,
know?
Peter, for the audience, what do you recommend, or what words do you have for them if they're sitting here right now listening and saying, I want to let go. I want to experience. What words do you have for them to assist them in that? In not only hearing what you say, but feeling it, finding it.
Yeah. Well, that's a great start. So that's a really good start, to really want it. The of wanting to let go, that's the intention. So you're putting your attention on there, and the more, even if you're frustrated and it's not happening, your intention is very important, because you want it to happen. And the more you want it to happen, it happens, because it isn't really something that we control. You know, like every morning when I lie there, I'm not really controlling the letting go. I don't know how it's happening. I'm just very, very, very willing to do it. I'm just absolutely, completely willing to do it. So the intention to be willing is a big part of it, you know? So in the beginning, the intention, you know, it's not 100%, because you don't really know. So you're sort of wavering a little bit. You're sort of like, I really want it. But then another part of you is saying like, yeah, but I don't know. I don't want too much. Maybe it might be, right? So you're kind of holding yourself in, but that intention is saying, yes, I want it, you know? And then say you have suffering in your life, right? And suffering comes on, you go, oh man, this is so bad. The world is just like going crazy. This is just like, I can't take it anymore. And then you could say, I want the freedom from it. So then you want it more. So the suffering can help you want it even more. Right. And that wanting it.
Closer.
Yeah. The thing that we don't understand is what we're wanting can never not be here all the time. It's always been here with us. But what we're opening to is what is here, what is always here. The dream of our life, of what we think we are and what we think the world is, that's really changing. That changes all the time. It's always changing, and it will continue to change. It's not a fixed, solid reality. It isn't really reality at all. Our perception of the world is not reality. We think it is. We feel it is. We're absolutely convinced that it is, but it's not. Just as we are in a dream. When we're sleeping in a dream, we're totally convinced that this dream is happening. Even if we sprout wings and we're flying, we go, oh, that's cool. I never knew this. This is great. Totally real. I'm flying, right? But we wake up in the morning and we don't have any wings. It's like, no, that was just a dream. But our waking life, it's harder for us to see that, because that's been going on for a long time, and we have enormous reinforcement. In other words, the human world is constantly telling us what we are, what the world is, and we're taking some things here and ignoring things there, but we're constantly receiving what the world is. For a while, instead of doing this surrender, which I'd been doing for years, I sort of got pulled into checking my phone, right? I got a new phone, and I think it probably started because I had, maybe I was going to go for a hike and I wanted to check the weather, or there were some emails that were coming in that I needed to answer and I didn't get them that night. So I was saying, okay, is it here? So, and that began being pulled into the world, right? And then I would check my Facebook, stream of what people were saying, hoping that there would be some truth in some of it. And occasionally there is a little bit, and a lot not. And so I started doing that, and it became a little bit of a habit, I just wake up, let's see what's going on in the world.
Yes.
But that's not really the world. That's taking the world, the real world is when I surrender to God. That's the real world. And I stopped doing that for a while, maybe a couple of months. And, and then I just realized, no, that wasn't right. That's not correct. But it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do that and to feel the pain. One of the things that came to me yesterday was that the human life, the human world that we have is a lot like touching a hot stove, right? It's like touching a hot stove. When we're kids, touch a hot stove, we probably don't need to do that more than twice at the most. It's like, no, ouch, this really hurts. But in our human life, we keep doing it. We keep touching the stove. Our whole life, we keep touching the stove and getting burnt and not learning. Often we touch the stove over and over and over again with the same thing, hoping that there'll be a different result. You know, maybe if I'm famous, then I'll be happy. If I'm famous or I reach this great success, then finally I'll be at peace and I'll be happy, right? We think this.
Yes.
That's the hot stove, because we get famous and it's not what we think it is.
Yep.
It's not what we thought it was. It's got actually a lot of difficulties as much as pleasure in it. And it's a mixed bag. It's all a mixed bag, you know, no matter what we have. You know, sex is like wonderful. We're in love, and this is just an incredible thing. But it's not something that we can do continuously our whole life. We still have to go to work or do something else. And then maybe somebody, like, you know, cuts us off in traffic, or the traffic is slow and we arrive at work late. And then, you know, the boss sort of gives us a dirty look. And it's like, okay, that's not the same thing. That wasn't like, I want to be back with my beloved. I want to be back there. So it's always touching the hot stove. Even the most pleasurable thing is touching the hot stove, because it's not going to last. Everything changes, and it's not what we think it is. It's all changing. And over time, through age, we can get some wisdom. Over time, we go like, oh, that was I'm not going to touch the hot stove anymore, you know. But it takes a while before we learn, because the world is saying, no, there's no hot stove. Go and touch it. It's perfectly fine. In fact, it's everything you want. It's everything you want. Go and touch it. Put both hands on it. Put your whole body on top of it. It's like the best thing, right? There's the advertising for the dream. And so we keep getting this reinforced, and then we go like, yeah, that hurt, but maybe the next time it won't. They promised it won't. So maybe it won't.
I'll try.
I must have been doing it wrong, you know. I'll try again in a different way, and maybe that'll work. But eventually we say, no, it's always the hot stove.
Yes.
It's always the hot stove. The only place there isn't a hot stove is God's world. God's world doesn't have a hot stove, you know. It also doesn't have the dreams and the desire for something else, because in each moment, it's so perfect. In each moment, it's just, you know, perfect. So there's no reason to want anything. Like, everything you see is so perfect, you know. Looking at the trees here, it's windy today, and just watching the trees moving in the wind it's what could be better. It's like, this is the ultimate in life. And then the next thing comes, and like, oh, that's the ultimate in life. In every moment, it's the ultimate in life. So you don't want something in the future. You're so happy with what is in each moment. So it's a challenge to live in this way. And that's why we have to unmake the world in each moment. You know, like Donald Trump is creating problems, and we have a challenge like, oh no, this again, right? If you look at a Facebook feed, you get everything that's happening. You know, it's like, what? You know, constantly like, could it be any worse? And then something, well, yes, look, here today. And then the next day, it's like this. And yet in God's world, that's not the way it is at all. You know, there's nothing that you can say. It's not like, oh no, he's wonderful. It's just, you don't know. You don't know. And all that angst and all that anger and all that frustration just goes. It's just not there. Because that's not in God's world. In God's world, we have nothing to say. What about climate change? You know, this is like a big deal. Climate change, global warming, fires, the, you know, sixth mass extinction of the species. This is like incredible, the things that are going on. How can this be good? But we don't know. We really don't know. In God's world, we look at that and go, I don't know. I don't know what that is really, because we don't. Our world, our world of thoughts, we know what that is. We absolutely know. And we know what kind of president Donald Trump is. And we know how he affects the world and other beings, you know, and we know what racism is. We know all these things, right? And we don't like it, you know, and there's some things we do like, and we know that too. But in reality, we don't know any of it. That's just our thoughts. That's what our conditioning is. The society that conditioned us, do they know? No. if they knew, would things be in so much trouble?
Yeah.
And what about some other, maybe there was a perfect society. Maybe there was a perfect society that didn't have any of this.
Yeah.
Where?
Yes.
If we read about it from the perspective of like 1,000 years ago, we can say that was perfect. But if we were there, we would say no, it wasn't.
It's not perfect. Yes. Yes.
No, it wasn't. No, there was all kinds of problems.
Yes. I'm afraid we're coming to the close of our time.
Okay.
Please share with everyone how they can learn more about you, contact you, and what last words you want to say today, please.
Yeah, through my website is n-lightenment.com. I think, do you list that, Paula?
Yes.
Is it, so you don't have to spell it, they can see it. Yeah, so that's a good way. I also have artwork on the Zen of Enlightenment.com. The Zen of Enlightenment is where I have my paintings and things like that. It's interesting because I'm a Zen monk, right? And I've been having a Zen practice for almost 50 years now. And it's, but I talk about God, you know, because I've never not experienced that. When I was a very young child, as long as I can remember, 2, 3 years old, I felt this kind of this presence that I do now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as a 2 or 3, my parents weren't religious. We didn't go to church. We didn't have any of that. But yet I felt this. And when I heard, I think from my father, the word God, I thought, oh, this must be God. You know, this feeling of just this great peace and contentment for no reason, you know, and this oneness with everything around me. That's what it must be. So I guess I've always had that, but it's not like I haven't forgotten it. It's not like I haven't been distracted by the world and gone into my world of being the successful artist, my world of being the successful filmmaker, my world of this and my relationships and my world of whatever I thought of myself. Yes. All that world, or, you know, not liking politics in one way or another, all that world of the way that I saw the world distracted me from this perfection that's always here.
And it is.
And that's,
here.
I think people want that, right? And why do they want it? Because it's real, because it is here. They feel, I want that. And at the same time, they also say, and I know it's real. I know it's more real than my world that I think is so real. And this other world, I can't grasp it. And yes, when you're in God's world, you don't grasp it. You don't like say, got it. You don't get it. You know, it's always one thing after another of not knowing, but it's wonderful because you surrender to that not knowing, and you realize that not knowing is bringing me all the joy, happiness, and love in my life, far more than my knowing ever did. So it's better.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Oh, gosh, I just adore chatting with you, Peter. This has been so fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you.
And to everyone, love, hugs, and blessings. Peter, love, hugs, and blessings. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.